Hi, and welcome to The Lowest Crime, the podcast all about true crime cases from one of the lowest countries in the world, the Netherlands. In this episode, we discuss the case of 15-year-old Nicole van den Hurk, who left her grandmother's house in Eindhoven to cycle to her part-time job at the supermarket, but she never arrived. What began as a simple missing person case grew into one of the Netherlands' most haunting cold cases that, after almost 20 years, finally got solved. Please be aware that this episode contains details of sexual assault, physical violence, and the death of a minor, so listener discretion is strongly advised. And as always, I try my very best to bring you all the known facts, but I am just an amateur podcast creator, so there is always a chance of me making a mistake. Here is the story of the disappearance and murder of Nicole van den Hurk. It was still dark on Friday, October 6, 1995, when 15-year-old Nicole van den Hurk woke up in her grandmother's house in Eindhoven. She had been staying there temporarily, together with her brother and sister, while her parents' home was being renovated. Her step-grandmother later told police that Nicole had a strict but caring routine while living with her. Nicole had only just started her new job at the Konmar supermarket earlier that week, and each morning she rose early, around 4:45 a.m., to eat, shower, and prepare for her shift. The night before, Thursday evening, October 5th, had been an ordinary one, though not without small tensions. Nicole had wanted to have dinner at her aunt's house, while her grandmother preferred that she eat at home. The disagreement led to a brief argument, after which Nicole went to her aunt's for dinner anyway. She stayed there for a while, but around 6:30 p.m. she returned home for a quick shower, only to head back out again to visit her boyfriend, who lived just across the street. Nicole had met her boyfriend that same year, when Nicole had started coming to his school, and they had grown closer while she was living with her grandmother. After visiting her boyfriend, she returned home later that evening, around 8:45 p.m. She came home and went to bed early, in preparation for an early start the next day. That next morning, her grandmother woke her at 4:45 a.m. Nicole followed her usual routine: breakfast, a quick shower, and then getting ready for work. Between 5:05 and 5:10 a.m., she left the house on her grey bicycle, heading toward the Konmar supermarket in the Woensel shopping area. By 6:15 a.m., the phone rang at her grandmother's home. It was a woman from the Konmar, asking where Nicole was. She had never shown up for her shift. When Nicole's grandmother notified them that she had indeed gone to work that morning, both parties became concerned. Konmar employees retraced the route that she would have taken to the store, hoping to find her or some clues to explain her absence, but there was no sign of her. Around 7:40 a.m., a staff member of the supermarket called the Eindhoven police to report her missing. Later that afternoon, when Nicole didn't appear at 3:30 p.m. to pick up her younger sister from school, as they had agreed upon, her parents also went to the police to file a missing persons report. By 5 p.m., officers from several Eindhoven police departments had launched a joint search effort. This initial search was extensive. Officers retraced Nicole's expected route, combed nearby canals, checked woods, public areas, and other potential locations where she might have gone, showing the urgency and seriousness with which the police treated her disappearance. About an hour later, at 6 p.m., a grim discovery was made. Nicole's grey bicycle was found in the Dommel River, near the Wasvanpad in Eindhoven. A week passed, with no sighting of Nicole. On October 13, 1995, police conducted a passerby investigation between 5 and 7 a.m. along Van Oldenbarneveldlaan, the route Nicole was believed to have taken. Officers questioned cyclists and pedestrians, hoping someone had seen anything unusual. 2 people came forward with possible sightings. They reported that on October 6, between 5:10 and 5:25 a.m., they had seen a girl resembling Nicole cycling near the same street. It was a small but crucial detail, placing her on her bicycle in those quiet, dark minutes before dawn, the last time anyone is known to have seen her alive. On October 18, 1995, the police received an anonymous letter stating that on the morning of Nicole's disappearance, a car was seen near the Wasvanpad. The sender also provided the license plate number of the car. The next day, on Thursday, October 19th, around 7:10 p.m., police were called to Kanaaldijk Zuid in Eindhoven. Kanaaldijk Zuid was a narrow, asphalted road that ran parallel to the south side of the Eindhoven Canal. Between the road and the water stretched a strip of grass and low bushes, ending in a shallow ditch. As officers searched the embankment, something dark caught their attention. A small bag tangled in a blackberry bush along the edge of the ditch. It was a black leather handbag of the brand Daniel Ray. Inside there was nothing. However, on the bottom of the ditch below, several other objects were scattered. Items that seemed to have fallen from the bag. Several papers were completely soaked and damaged by the weather conditions. By the looks of it, the items must have already been there for quite some time. Along them were a receipt from a school bookstore in the name of Nicole van den Hurk, several business cards and some makeup items. Following the discovery of the bag, police launched another large search, this time on the south side of the Eindhoven Canal, using a dog specifically trained to detect human remains in water. From October 22nd until October 25th, multiple tips came in, but none that end up helping the police find Nicole. In November of 1995, tips continue to arrive daily. But since no concrete evidence of a crime is found, police increasingly consider that Nicole may have run away. Early November, there are strong suspicions that Nicole may be in Germany after a man reported seeing her at a gas station in Venlo on October 6th. And although police acknowledge the signs that Nicole may have run away, they do not exclude the possibility of a crime. Her German grandmother, Mrs. Betts, maintains that Nicole left voluntarily and is somewhere enjoying herself. On November 16, 1995, a young woman's body is found in the Belgian Voorstreek, initially suspected to be Nicole's. However, the next day it was confirmed that they were in fact not Nicole's remains. And then, on Wednesday, November 22, 1995, at around 1:30 in the afternoon, a walker made a grim discovery in a wooded area along the Mierlozeweg, just outside of Lierop, roughly 12.6 kilometers from the place where Nicole van den Hurk had vanished 7 weeks earlier. The Mierlozeweg connected the villages of Mierlo and Lierop, and the forest there could be reached by a narrow sand path. The path itself ran about 15 to 20 meters before ending in a dead end along the trees. In the far corner of that wooded area, near the end of the path, officers noticed a large pile of garden waste, a pile of discarded branches and tree cuttings. When they approached, they saw what no one had wanted to find. Beneath the pile lay a human body. It was immediately clear that the remains were in an advanced state of decomposition. The body was laying on its back, with a slight bend in the hips. Some of her hair was tangled in nearby branches. As officers examined the scene, they noted several details. The left front tooth in the upper jaw was broken, and the lower jaw set in an unnatural position. 2 molars were missing on the left side of the lower jaw, and on the remaining skin at the top of her head, investigators saw a sharp-edged cut. After the remains were recovered, police found a small fragment of Nicole's broken tooth at the exact spot where her head had rested. Nicole was fully dressed. She was wearing jeans, white shoes, and a green and pink fleece sweater, and over it a red-brown jacket. Both the fleece and the jacket had been partially pulled upward. The jacket was bunched beneath her back and its zipper was open. According to investigators, such a disturbance of the clothing could have been caused if the body had been dragged or carried. Although DNA testing was still limited at the time, the investigators still took samples from both the sweater and the jacket for forensic testing. After comparing the dental records, investigators confirmed beyond any doubt that the remains were Nicole's. On Thursday, November 23, 1995, Dr. Visser, a pathologist at the Judicial Laboratory of the Ministry of Justice, performed an autopsy on Nicole's body. By the time of the examination, the body was already in an advanced state of decomposition, especially around her head, neck, and chest. The pathologist found injuries to her skull that suggested severe blunt force trauma. Nicole had a double fracture in her lower right jaw and a deep cut on her forehead. However, because of the level of decomposition, it was impossible to determine the exact cause of death. During the investigation, forensic experts also examined Nicole's clothing, her sweater, jacket, underwear, and jeans, for hairs. They discovered one hair on the jacket that did not belong to Nicole. There were also samples taken from her mouth, private parts, and her underwear and jeans to test for the presence of semen. The semen traces that they ended up finding on Nicole's body complicated the case. The samples were heavily degraded, as her body had lain in the forest for several weeks before being discovered. And in part because of this, the investigation stalled, and the case gradually went cold. It wasn't until 2011 that it was decided to reopen the investigation into Nicole van den Hurk's murder. Forensic investigators re-examined the evidence with the most advanced techniques available at the time. In a report from the Netherlands Forensic Institute, NFI, dated July 15, 2011, Professor Kloosterman, a forensic DNA expert, examined the single hair that was found on Nicole's jacket. While they could not obtain a full DNA profile from the hair, DNA testing revealed that the hair did not belong to Nicole or to anyone maternally related to her. It was concluded that the hair came from someone unknown. Further testing of biological samples revealed the presence of male genetic material in several locations on Nicole's clothing. Using advanced forensic tests, experts were able to get a detailed DNA profile from these traces. The results showed the presence of traces from Nicole's boyfriend as well as an unknown man's DNA. These produced complex mixed DNA profiles that were much more advanced than what could have been analyzed in 1995. At the time of the investigation, both Nicole's stepfather and stepbrother were considered potential suspects, but after they voluntarily provided DNA samples to be compared to the material found on her body, investigators cleared them of any involvement. In 2012, the cold case team uncovered a crucial lead. A man who had been convicted in 2001 for a sexual assault had striking similarities to what had happened to Nicole van den Hurk. In the year 2000, he had committed a brutal sexual assault against a 20-year-old woman. He had dragged her off her bicycle and had taken her to a secluded area. This striking similarity created a strong suspicion toward him. He had then also been sentenced to 3 years in prison and TBS with compulsory treatment after sexually abusing his ex-girlfriend twice in her own home. Additionally, he was linked to another sexual assault case dating back to 1987. Investigators decided to compare the DNA evidence from Nicole's body with his. And finally, a match. The 46-year-old man, whose name was Jos de G, was finally arrested in 2014. After further researching Jos's behavior in the months surrounding Nicole van den Hurk's disappearance in October 1995, Jos de G had a documented history of violent and sexually abusive behavior. His ex-girlfriend reported multiple assaults against her, including rape and severe physical violence, starting after their relationship ended in late September 1995. On several occasions in October 1995, he had forcibly entered her home, attacked her, and threatened her. These incidents led to his arrest on November 13, 1995, for severe assault. In 2015, Jos de G finally spoke to investigators about the case. He claimed that the DNA found on Nicole's body wasn't his, but if it somehow was, he said, then it must have come from what he called a voluntary sexual encounter. He explained that between 1990 and 1995, he had had many casual sexual contacts, though he insisted he had never met Nicole van den Hurk. He admitted to having lived a chaotic life in mid-1990 and stated that around the time of Nicole's disappearance he was struggling mentally, asking his doctor for sedatives and later telling investigators he had felt unstable and suicidal. This was around the time that he was also facing criminal charges for sexually assaulting his girlfriend. Jos described his younger years as deeply troubled, neglectful parents, depression, drinking, fighting, gambling, and a constant need for validation through sex and alcohol. Later, psychological reports confirmed that he suffered from an antisocial personality disorder with borderline and narcissistic traits, combined with addiction problems. He admitted to later sexual assaults, including the one in 2000 that led to his TBS sentence, saying that his behavior was fueled by drugs and alcohol. But when it came to Nicole's case, he maintained one thing. If his DNA was there, it must have been from consensual contact, not violence. And while he called himself a rapist, he insisted that he was not a murderer. However, forensic investigation showed otherwise. When Jos's profile was compared to the evidence, independent labs confirmed the match. Tests showed that the DNA on Nicole's body was 100 times more likely to come from Jos than from any other random person. And other analyses showed that it was even billions of times more likely that it was his DNA present on Nicole's body. These results provided exceptionally strong evidence linking Jos de G to Nicole. By January 14, 2014, investigators had gathered enough evidence to arrest him on suspicion of both rape and murder of Nicole. During the trial, Jos de G firmly denied any involvement in her death, insisting that he was not responsible for her murder. And although the evidence against him was strong, there was an issue. Because the autopsy could not definitively determine which injuries had caused Nicole's death, so the court could not find proof of premeditated murder beyond reasonable doubt. Another complicating factor was that another unknown DNA trace had been found on Nicole's body, leaving the possibility, according to the court, that someone else could have caused her death. For Nicole's family, the trial was devastating. Her stepmother spoke in tears about how all her hope vanished when she learned that Nicole had been raped, and how she must have suffered and struggled. Nicole was a 15-year-old girl with so many plans, so much mischief, she said. She imagined how Nicole would have been now, a woman of 38, undoubtedly a wonderful person. What must have been unbearably frustrating for the grieving family was that in 2016, Jos de G was sentenced by the court to 5 years in prison for the rape of Nicole van den Hurk, but that he was acquitted of manslaughter. The reason being that the unknown DNA traces found on Nicole's body left the possibility that somebody else could have caused her death. The appellate court, however, saw things differently. They noted that the DNA trace was very limited and of unknown origin, and that there were many possible explanations of how it ended up on Nicole's body. The court stated firmly, "We hold this man accountable for forcing a 15-year-old girl who had her whole life in front of her into sexual acts and then causing her death. Nicole van den Hurk must have been unimaginably terrified in her final moments." And thus, in October 2018, the family finally got the recognition they were looking for. Jos de G was sentenced to 12 years in prison for both rape and manslaughter. The case of Nicole van den Hurk is a chilling reminder of how fragile life can be, and how the pursuit of justice can sometimes take decades. It shows the incredible importance of advances in forensic science and how one hair, analyzed years later with modern DNA techniques, can finally lead to justice. For Nicole's family, the pain and loss will never fully disappear, but at least they now finally have some sort of closure. And that is where we'll leave it for today. If you appreciated this episode, it would help me out tremendously if you'd leave a like or a comment or consider subscribing to the podcast. Thank you all so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.